blues, and specifically country blues, is a foundational forebear of the music we listen to today. It would be difficult to overstate its impact not only upon music but American culture at large, which is what makes the incomplete histories of so many of its seminal figures and their catalogs all the more intriguing. Charlie Patton is celebrated by some as one of the most influential musicians in American history, and yet there's no firm consensus on which decade he was even born in. The legendary Son House performed in obscurity, gave up music entirely, and wasn't discovered by the wider world until he was in his 60s. Robert Johnson stands as one of the most titanic figures in all of country blues, but almost no photos of the man exist. A few of his recordings stayed buried for half a century. There may have been others that will never be found. Lost media, in fact, plagues this genre. James Dolan is another bluesman whose catalog often evades obsessives. Browse the Lost Media Reddit and you'll find amateur researchers pining for one elusive recording in particular. It's called Fix the Knicks, which Dolan appears to have recorded under the alias JD. Those who were lucky enough to have heard it, who testify to its existence, are tormented by an inability to recover it. Why? Well, of course some aficionados and crate divers seek it simply for the sake of completionism, but others, like myself, are a little fascinated by the notion that a Delta blues musician who, being a Delta blues musician, presumably hailed from the Deep South, would harbor an interest in the New York Knicks. Who is James Dolan? And why were the Knicks the subject of his affection? It's a question that's hardly answered by the song's lyrics, its only surviving remnants, which were discovered and preserved by the esteemed Mike Prada in 2011. But they do express a particular affinity for this basketball team. Fix the Knicks and make him shine, get him to win like it's 69. It's interesting that he locks in on the year 1969 here. The Knicks did win multiple titles around that time, but neither of them came in 1969. Perhaps he wasn't very familiar with the team, he was just trying to force a rhyme, or both. Either way, he continues with a prescription for this team. Hitting all their free throws, and no more shooting bricks. Time to get it right and fix the Knicks. I wonder, when Dolan penned and sang these words, whether he thought anything would ever come of them, whether anyone would even hear him in the first place. But the beauty of music is that it allows strangers, people who never meet, to form a sort of communion with one another, one that can bridge borders, oceans, even great expanses of time. Whatever sort of man Dolan was when he wrote this, whatever sort of life he lived down in the Delta, whatever he was feeling, these words resonate with me. I don't know you, JD. I never will. But I can keep your flame alight. I will fix the Knicks. I will run a simulation, one that stretches back decades, that replays every single Knicks shot of every single Knicks game in recent decades. This old blues master sang of a zero-tolerance policy toward shooting bricks, and so shall I. This is my one and only rule of this simulation. If you miss a shot, you're off the team. Forever. It might seem a little draconian to cut a player from the roster for the simple misdeed of missing a single field goal, but I don't know how else to fulfill JD's vision. He didn't sing of improved efficiency, he didn't demand fewer bricks, he demanded no more bricks. None. Again, it's a zero-tolerance policy. Since we know so little about Dolan's life, we don't know whether he was around to witness these modern New York Knicks, but it's inarguable that making every basket would have done them a lot of good. The 1996-97 season is the earliest for which full play-by-play and shot location data is available, so we will limit our scope between this season and the most recent one, 2023-24. Within, the New York Knicks have played exactly 2,222 regular season games, 995 wins, 1,227 losses. They lost those 1,227 games because, yes, they shot bricks. They missed. Had they never missed, they would have won every single game by an average of about 104 points, and yeah, I did the math. After flipping all their field goal misses to makes, they finish a perfect 2,222-0. Their closest victory is a 47-point squeaker, and their largest margin of victory is 184, coming in a 326-142 victory over the Hawks in 2017. Granted, many of the field goals within were made possible by offensive rebounds and tip-ins following previous misses, which would certainly compromise this data set just a bit, but let's dare to dream. Instead, though, the real Knicks made only 44.8% of their shots in this span, and coincidentally, their winning percentage was identical to that, 44.8. That isn't what I would call abysmal, but this is their postseason performance, in which they've won 0 titles and made just 1 finals appearance since 96-97. Most of this century is made up of prolonged postseason droughts, which are particularly disappointing in a sports league that sends more than half its teams to the playoffs every year. Now, in this most recent 23-24 postseason, the Knicks made their most inspired run in decades, overcoming an endless series of devastating injuries to come within 1 win of the conference finals. Fans have plenty of reason to be optimistic in the years to come, but this optimism took far, far long to arrive. Is there anything to be done about these years? I think so. I hope so. And I owe it to that idealistic old-timer to find out. Let's begin. Game number 1 of 2,222, November 1st, 1996, Knicks vs. Raptors. We find ourselves at the Cathedral of Basketball, the Sky Dome in Toronto. I'll explain my methodology by way of example as we go along. For starters, you'll notice that the scorebug already displays the Raptors' real-life final score tonight of 99. That is the number to beat. We're also starting with 37 points. This is because the real-life Knicks made 37 free throws in this game, and since free throws are extraordinarily difficult to log, sequence, and resimulate, I'm not even going to attempt to do so. I'm going to limit JD's demand of perfection to field goals specifically, of which the Knicks attempt 68 tonight. That's 68 attempts to score the 63 points we need to lock up the win. According to the play-by-play data, the first shot attempt of the night, just a few seconds into the game, is a long 2 from the greatest Knick of all time. Blue is for a make, red is for a miss, and Patrick Ewing finds himself in the blue. He sinks it. And here, I call upon the official to pause the game for a brief ceremony. Since I serve as the Knicks owner, general manager, and head coach within this simulation, I feel it necessary to instill a positive culture around here. And I'd like to do so by introducing our Circle of Champions. This exclusive group, whose jerseys we will raise to the rafters, will be populated by our top contributors throughout the next 28 years, and it is my great pleasure to induct its inaugural member, Patrick Aloysius Ewing. So far, so good. No altering of history required until the next shot when Charlie Ward bricks a 3. That miss stands, but regrettably I must now void Ward's contract and cut him from the Knicks. Of course, the question now becomes, who will take the next shot Charlie Ward took in real life? Simple. Knicks man up. The next available Knick. We're employing simple gumball machine logic here. When the play-by-play lists Charlie Ward taking another shot later in this quarter, his turn will be taken by a new Knick, and that Knick will take the shot Ward would have taken. But we'll get to that soon enough. Right now, with 10 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in the first quarter, it's time for Allen Houston to shoot. First, though, let's go to the big board. Here, we're going to survey every New York Knicks basketball player we will have at our disposal throughout this simulation. All these blocks represent a player. The x-axis represents the season or seasons in which they appeared as a Knick. The z-axis represents the total number of field goals they attempted in a Knicks jersey. As you can see, some attempted very, very few. Thanasis Antetokounmpo tried only 4 field goals as a Knick, so he barely sticks out of the ground at all here. Same story for Ben Davis and David Wingate, who attempted very few shots despite appearing in multiple Knicks seasons in the late 90s. As you can see, quite a few players were on the roster for a very short time and took very few shots. Further north, we see guys who leave more significant footprints. Marty Collins, who played a few years in the aughts, Jason Kidd in his final season before retiring, Kemba Walker, who was only in New York for a year. Still further north, the skyline gets more imposing, made up of the likes of Charles Oakley, Othello Harrington, Iman Shumpert, Derrick Rose, and finally the small minority of prolific shot takers who make this chart as top-heavy as it is. The Stars, the most memorable Knicks of the last quarter century and change. These are the shot takers and hopefully shot makers whose contributions we need the very most. And the tallest tower, the most frequent New York Knicks shot taker of the last 28 years is none other than Allan Houston, who hit more than 4,000 shots as a member of this organization. And now it's his time to shine within this simulation. The pride of Louisville, Kentucky sets and fires from three. Come on, Allan, let's show him what the Jefferson County public school system is all about. He has missed. That is not what the Jefferson County public school system is all about. That is not what New York Knicks basketball is all about, Allan Houston. It is with great displeasure and regret that I must cut you from the team. I'm starting to get a bad feeling about this. We have 28 years worth of simulations ahead of us, and we have lost our top scorer in the first 90 seconds. In real life, Houston also took the next shot of this game. This shot, a layup at the rim, will now be taken by the next man up, Larry Johnson, who lays it in. This constitutes our first simulated shot, so it's at this point that I should probably open the hood and explain the mechanics of this thing. This right here is the spreadsheet I am working from. Here to the right you see the play-by-play of the actual real-life Knicks shot attempts from this game. To the left you see the shots taken in this simulation. As you can see, I was able to simply log the shots just as they were in real life, but now we got a problem. Allan Houston took the fourth shot, but in our simulation he's been thrown off the team. Someone has to take this layup at the rim. Who takes it? The next man up takes it. The next available shot taker, Larry Johnson. Again, this is the gumball machine logic we're going to employ from here on out, and we're completely agnostic as to what kind of shot it was or where on the floor it was attempted from. All we care about is whether it was a make or a miss. All shots are going to be taken from the exact same spot on the floor that they were in real life. The only thing that changes is who happens to take it and whether they happen to make their corresponding shot number. In this case, Johnson took Houston's place and took the shot Houston would have taken. Since Johnson made his first real-life shot, this is a bucket. Good job. Buck Williams misses his first and is therefore no longer a New York Knick. Johnson puts in a second shot. John Starks misses his first and is gone. We are losing Knicks legends left and right. It is now time for Patrick Ewing to shoot another. It is time for the one and only member of our circle of champions to show his teammates what Knicks basketball is all about. He has missed. Patrick Ewing has missed. You know what? Stop the game. Stop the game again. We are holding another ceremony to pull Patrick Ewing's jersey down from the rafters. Admittedly, it was kind of odd for us to raise it up there in the first place since we are in the other team's arena. Regardless, Patrick Ewing is no longer a New York Knick and he is no longer a member of the Circle of Champions. I am now worried over what losing our greatest player about 6 minutes into our 28-year simulation might do to our organization's morale. We need heroes to inspire us. So, upon further reflection, I've decided to modify the prerequisites for induction to the Circle of Champions. From this point forth, if you make at least 3 baskets, you will be celebrated forever as a member of the Circle of Champions. Larry Johnson makes his 3rd basket. Larry Johnson is now an eternal member of the Circle of Champions. Larry Johnson misses his 4th shot and is immediately cut from the roster. It would seem that even making one's first 3 baskets is a pretty tall order. Walter McCarty hits his first 2, misses his 3rd. Charles Oakley does the same and as a consequence is banned from Madison Square Garden for life. By the end of the first quarter of the first game, we've already given Ewing, Starks, Johnson, and Oakley their walking papers. I'm a little bit concerned, but this is what is required if we're to bring a bluesman's dream to life. If we can maintain the resolve to cast aside the players we once regarded as legends, we will eventually find the true legends, the players who never, ever miss. And if we can do that, we might never lose again. To end the half in the real-world version of this game, John Starks hoisted up an afterthought of a shot, a 54-foot prayer with zeros on the clock. Predictably, he missed. But our next man up is Kurt Thomas, whose first shot on record within this sample is a 10-foot jumper, so he gets to shoot a 54-footer with 10-footer odds. He buries it. Good job, Kurt. And in fact, Kurt sinks his next 2 shots before finally missing his 4th. You know what that means. Kurt Vincent Thomas, although we regrettably have to oust you from the organization, you have nonetheless scored 3 buckets and are therefore a member of the Circle of Champions. I will have you know that, just like those old blues legends, finding respectable photos for these players within our licensed photo catalog has not always been easy. This is my rule. The photo must be of the player, while clearly and visibly a member of the Knicks, ideally while he's on the floor. In the case of Anthony Bowie, who played only briefly for the Knicks in an era when photographers used film and could not take infinite photos, I had to resort to a grainy photo of him standing courtside. Not a good photo, not a terrible photo. You want to see a terrible photo? Sorry, Andrew Lang, this was the best I could do. You were only a Knick during the final 19 games of your career, so I had almost nothing to work with. It's not your fault, but I think it's worthwhile to specially catalog such terrible photos. Andrew Lang, you are the inaugural member of the Terrible Photo Squad. A look at the big board tells us that we are burning through our reserves a little bit more quickly than I'd like. I'm not too worried about it, so I don't want this to come across as alarmist, but just in case, I'd like to encourage some of these players to consider having kids who can play for the New York Knicks down the road. Again, just an idea. But let's keep our attention to the matter at hand. About halfway through the third quarter, we have 79 points with 23 shots remaining in the game. We're going to need to manufacture at least 21 points within these 23 shots in order to lock up the win. I think we're in good shape. A miss from Mirsad Turkan, a make and a miss from DeMarco Johnson. Up next is Edric Bohannon. I said, up next is Edric Bohannon. Edric Bohannon, you are due up to shoot an ill-advised 20-foot jumper. Please report to the floor. Okay, we have a situation. Edric Bohannon was once a New York Knick, but he never took a shot in a New York Knicks uniform. Let's confirm by pulling up his page on StatHead. He took a total of 21 shots for the Pacers, Clippers, and Cavs, but while he did play for the Knicks, he played only 5 total minutes and registered 0 field goal attempts. We find ourselves at a crossroads here. We can see Edric Bohannon in one of two ways, right? We can see him as merely a player who never attempted a field goal, or a player who never missed a field goal. I choose to see the latter. Obviously, we cannot and do not cut Bohannon from the team since he has not missed a shot and thereby not given us reason to cut him. But we can't give him any more shots either because he offers us no shot data we can pull from. So, what I will do is retain him. And in celebration of his status as a player who never misses in a Knicks uniform, I will introduce him as our first foundational cornerstone. I'm not yet sure how he can contribute, but I feel like someday, somehow, he will. I do regret that our greatest and most important player has such a bad photo. Since Bohannon only played 5 minutes for the Knicks, there are no photos in our catalog of him in a Knicks uniform. And since he only played 152 career minutes in the NBA, there are only 3 action shots of him total. So from these 3, I was compelled to choose the one in the uniform that most closely resembles the Knicks color scheme. That is the one in which his face is partially obscured by Kobe Bryant's hand. Therefore, Edric Bohannon is a foundational cornerstone as well as a member of the Terrible Photo Squad. Our shooting has gone cold in the third quarter as we have missed 8 of our last 10 shots. Thank goodness for Eric Strickland, who drains his first 3 shots and shoots his way into the circle of champions. Congratulations to him. And although he misses his 4th shot, he's put us in great position to walk away with a win. Louisville legend Felton Spencer puts one in to bring us to 91 points with 11 shots to go. Just need 9 points for the win. Here we go. Travis Knight at the rim. No, Spencer gets the rebound. Misses in the paint. I did not even know Luke Longley ever played for the Knicks, but here he is. Bucket. Longley misses the next one at the rim. Othello Harrington gets it to go. Harrington again in the paint with the jumper to bring it to 97. Harrington from 3. Can't put it in. We have 4 shots left. We need at least 2 points. It is possible that if we only make one more shot, we're headed to overtime, in which case I have developed a model that would allow us to simulate an overtime period that did not occur in real life. It's an imperfect model, though, and I would prefer not to use it. I'd really like us to win this one in regulation. Thankfully, we have some reliable and accomplished vets on deck: Mark Jackson, Clarence Weatherspoon, Shandon Anderson, and Howard Isley. First, Jackson. Some of you are probably already familiar with this Mark Jackson basketball card from the 1990-91 NBA Hoops set, but a lot of you have probably never seen this card before. It's an extremely special basketball card, and I will give you 5 seconds to study it and try to figure out what could possibly be so special about it. Good luck. Alright, time's up. Nearly 30 years after this card was printed, over the course of his exhaustive research, a man named Steven Zarantz was the first to discover that these two guys sitting courtside are the Menendez brothers. Here they are pictured prior to being apprehended by police, but after murdering their parents. Anyway, Jackson misses and is no longer a member of the Knicks organization. Weatherspoon in the paint, no. Anderson with a layup, too strong. Isley at the rim, can't get it to go. We've lost. Raptors 99, Knicks 97. This was a game the real-life Knicks won, 107-99. Despite my hardcore, zero-tolerance for imperfection policy, I somehow managed to flip a win into a loss. Worse yet, we cut 40 players from the team in the process. It's at this point I should clarify that our Knicks man-up gumball machine logic necessitates time machine logic. For instance, a couple shots in this game in 1996 were taken by LeVar Postel, who at the time would have been a college freshman playing at St. John's. Obviously, that LeVar Postel did not take those shots. They were instead taken by 2000's LeVar Postel, who hopped in a time machine back to the year 1996 to do so. In other words, we admittedly stole from the Knicks' future for the sake of winning this one game, and of course, we didn't even do that. I'll admit that I'm disappointed, but I remain resolute, because our search for the players who never miss has already paid dividends. I have faith that one man who never misses, one Edric Bohannon, he's worth all the Patrick Ewings and Allen Houstons in the world. On November 3rd, 1996, we lick our wounds and prepare for Game 2 in the Cathedral of Basketball, our very own Madison Square Garden, where we play host to the 86-point Charlotte Hornets. We'll spot ourselves 22 points for the 22 free throws the real-life Knicks made in this game. Superlatives are doled out immediately in this one. The first shot of the game is made by Larry Robinson, whose immediate induction to the terrible photo squad should not surprise anybody. Robinson is a career journeyman who's logged 5 different NBA seasons in which he played fewer than 60 minutes and is one of just 2 NBA players who has ever done that. He only played 10 minutes for the Knicks, which is how you end up with your one otherwise usable photo completely ruined by Allen Iverson's elbow. As long as we're over here, let's also induct Dikembe Mutombo into the Circle of Champions. Mutombo puts in his first 3 to get things going, after which we settle into a rhythm. Out in the distance, more and more New York Knicks careers are going dark, and it remains my fervent hope that we can find more foundational cornerstones before the lights go out entirely. As the final seconds tick off the first half, we appear to be in pretty good shape. Although our score is inflated by the 22 free throws we banked at the outset, we're still on pace to finish with 98 points, more than enough to win. This is when a hero emerges. Jackie Butler, who on November 3rd, 1996 would be 11 years old were it not for the time machine he took to get here, drops in a layup and then hits a long 2 at the buzzer. Opening the third, he continues his tear with another long jumper, then puts in a 4th at the rim. We are benefiting here from the real-life Jackie Butler's historic 2004-2005 season, in which he was a perfect 4 for 4 from the floor. He is thereby one of just 2 players throughout all of NBA history to finish a season with at least 4 field goal attempts and a perfect field goal percentage of 1,000. Butler sat out the first few games of the subsequent 05-06 season, so here he remains on the floor without taking a shot as several other Knicks make their way on and off the stage. And then, late in the third, he sets, fires from beyond the stripe, and drills field goal number 5. Jackie Butler exemplifies Knicks basketball unlike any player who has come before him. While his unforgettable run finally ends upon missing his 6th attempt, he is immediately inducted as the latest and greatest member of the New York Knicks Circle of Champions. In the fourth, we see more heroics from Kelvin Cato, whose mid-range jumper officially brings us over the line to victory. A couple more ceremonial makes result in us ushering yet another Knick into the Circle of Champions. From here forth, we cruise to a comfortable 96-86 victory over the Hornets. Over the course of this game, we dismissed 46 more players from the organization. On November 5th, 1996, we remain at the Cathedral of Basketball, Madison Square Garden, to host Shaquille O'Neal and the Lakers. We've got an especially tough challenge ahead of us as we try to flip a real-life 98-92 loss into a win. Early on, we encounter someone I find to be particularly interesting. Demetrius Nichols was only a Knick for a very brief window of time, but you wouldn't know it from the footprint he left in our photo library. One day prior to the 2007 season, Nichols was at the Knicks training facility, and it would seem as though the team's photographers were just sitting around bored, itching for anything to do, so they shot and filed far more photos than one might expect of a second-round draft pick. There are posed J.C. Penney-style photos, there are photos with sheet metal in the background, there are intimate, artsy black and white photos, there are photos with stylized frames, there are tons of cool action photos, there are behind-the-scenes photos, there are photos of the photo shoot. No other Knick I've encountered so far has received anything close to this lavish treatment. It's as though they drafted LeBron, which they did not. Demetrius Nichols did not end up playing for the Knicks that season, and when he finally wound up back in New York the next season, he was only on the floor for 9 minutes. Nichols ended up assembling a long and impressive series of careers in international ball, media, and coaching, which you can read all about in his Wikipedia page, in which the author managed to get a few words into the coaching section of the article. And then they died. Nichols misses a layup at the rim. Throughout the first 3 quarters of this one, we'll see 2 more legends enter the New York Knicks circle of champions, Henry Walker and Raymond Felton. Congratulations to them. But we've also suffered a pair of particularly devastating losses. In the second quarter, Amari Stoudemire misses his second attempt. And in the third, Carmelo Anthony, the most productive Knick of the 21st century to date, misses his very first shot and is cut from the organization. This means that the 2 greatest scorers within this sample, Allen Houston and Carmelo Anthony, have combined to produce 0 points. With about 9 minutes left in regulation, a win still remains within reach, but our organizational morale is in shambles. We need something, anything, to give us a spark, even if that spark arrives in the form of a terrible photo. This is the worst photo yet. Of that, there is no doubt. The arm Derek Brown is shoving his face into belongs to Nenad Kirstic. This is a horrible photograph of both men, neither of whom are stars by any stretch of the imagination. It's unclear why anybody bothered to add this photo to the catalog in the first place. I'm positive that I am the only person on Earth who has ever used it or cared about it, which I very much do. It goes without saying that Derek Brown is the 4th member of our terrible photo squad, but as longtime viewers know, he is so much more than that. Brown is a secret base legend, having previously appeared in The People You're Paying to Be in Shorts, our documentary about Michael Jordan's historically abysmal 2010-2011 Charlotte Bobcats squad. As we learned within, advanced metrics indicated that Brown, typically a bit player throughout his brief NBA career, was very quietly the most valuable member of the team. Something just happens with this guy when he enters the secret base expanded universe. He makes magic. Brown knocked down his first shot. He pulls up from 17 and hits. He puts in a layup and it goes for 2. He puts in another layup. That one also goes. Another layup. That one's good. Brown finally misses shot number 6, but not before exploding for 10 points. Derek Ball Brown is the 9th member of the New York Knicks circle of champions, delivering an invaluable shot in the arm to a reeling franchise in desperate need of one. All of a sudden, we're 9 points away from a win with 12 shots remaining. We can win this thing. Immediately, though, we're brought back down to earth by 4 consecutive misses, saying goodbye to such memorable Knicks as Iman Shumpert and Tyson Chandler. The unforgettable Jeremy Lin also misses his first and is immediately gone for good. A flurry of makes and misses have brought us here. Down 2, with just 2 shots remaining, and the ball in the hands of one, J.R. Smith. J.R. is one of my favorite Knicks of all time. Smith is better remembered for his goofs than his heroics. He won over fans with his electrifying dunks and occasional clutch shooting, but could drive coaches up a wall with his shot selection. The shot he's selecting here, or rather the shot selected for him, is a 3-pointer from the top of the arc for the win, and he delivers the dagger. Knicks win. Sadly, Smith misses his final meaningless shot and parts ways with the organization, but thanks to heroics from him and Derek Brown, we have established that this one-shot-you're-out methodology is capable of flipping a loss into a win. A landmark achievement. Now, you might be worried to see that so many of our players have now faded out of view. So am I. On November 7th, 1996, we make a pilgrimage to the Cathedral of Basketball, San Jose Arena, to face the Golden State Warriors. I'm afraid our guys are suffering a bit of a hangover from our third game of the regular season victory parade because out of the gate, we only hit 4 of our first 17 attempts. Of our first 15 shooters, only 2, Ronnie Brewer and Kenyon Martin, managed to score. Among those who missed their one and only shot is Pablo Prigioni. You might scoff at my induction of Prigioni into the terrible photo squad, not because this isn't a terrible photo, but because surely there must be better photos of him, right? He played 2.5 seasons with the Knicks and saw quite a lot of playing time. Surely there are lots of other photos of him in a Knicks uniform. And you're right about that. There are. And when he's not in action, he's a perfectly normal, good-looking guy. But remember, my rule is that I must use a photo of a player in action whenever possible. That's where I ran into trouble with this guy. In what seems like every single one of his action shots, he's making the weirdest face. Either he's making a stinky face, or he's contorting his mouth and sticking his tongue out, or he's just... Hold on, let me bring up this photo so we can both look at it at the same time. Or he's doing that. I don't know what that is. Listen, man, after a point I just gave up and used the most representative photo of you. Congratulations on your membership. Tim Hardaway Jr. gets us back on track with a layup, then a half-court heave to end the first quarter, and finally a jumper in the paint to punch his ticket to the Circle of Champions. Due up early in the second with 45 points on the board is J.R. Smith's brother, Chris Smith, who we are instantly calling up to the terrible photo squad without an instant of hesitation. This photo is obviously a shoo-in for induction. Once again, though, you probably have questions because this is quite unlike all the other terrible photos. This is the closest I could get to a photo of Chris Smith in uniform in a regular season Knicks game. A display behind the real Chris Smith being introduced for the home opener in street clothes. Across his entire New York Knicks career, which also constituted his entire NBA career, he saw exactly 1 minute and 57 seconds of game time. Smith is on a very, very short list of players whose entire NBA careers clocked in at under 2 minutes. Quite a few Knicks fans were pretty upset when the team placed him on the opening day roster, accusing them of doing so just to appease his brother and teammate, JR. Coach Mike Woodson responded to the allegations of nepotism with, pretty much. Chris himself responded to the allegations with, pretty much. But I think JR, the hero of November 5th, has earned a little bit of favoritism. The shot Chris is assigned to take is a three-pointer originally taken by Larry Johnson. Oh my God. There is another. Chris Smith never attempted an NBA field goal throughout his entire 2-minute career. He is therefore a player who never missed a shot. He is therefore, alongside the great Edric Bohannon, our second foundational cornerstone. These are the 2 men we must build around somehow, some way. At this point, we cannot say enough about J.R. Smith's transformative contributions to this organization. Not only did he drill the game winner that flipped a real-life loss into a win for the first time, it was his insistence and loyalty to his brother that has landed us a foundational cornerstone. So I'm making a special exception to the rules here. Although J.R. Smith did not make the 3 shots required for induction to the Circle of Champions, he's brought something far greater to this organization. It is he who will occupy the center of the circle. It is him around whom all our other heroes revolve. Congratulations to Earl Smith III, a.k.a. J.R. Smith. 2 more Knicks enter the Circle of Champions this evening, Kyle O'Quinn and Thanasis Antetokounmpo. I'm glad to have the opportunity to pronounce Thanasis a second time, this time correctly. Anyway, both of whom make their first 3 shots before missing their 4th. Unfortunately, we just cannot hang. While the real-life Knicks finished the night with a field goal percentage of .561, we shoot just .394. And while they won this contest 105-100, we lose it 100-82. Uh-oh. Although we still have plenty of Knicks waiting to make their debuts, we're burning through our reserves a little more quickly than I'd like, but we must continue to stay the course. Or, as the memorable Philadelphia 76ers saying goes, do a good job at playing basketball. The next day, we head to the Cathedral of Basketball, Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena to take on the Clippers. Given the low scoring output from the Clips tonight, we've got a great opportunity here to improve to 3-2 and give ourselves a winning record. First up is three-point specialist Jimmer Fredette, the star of an episode of Prism that I would recommend if you haven't seen it. Anyway, he became a legend at BYU by virtue of his ability to hit cartoonishly long threes. Consequently, he was overhyped and chosen way too early in the draft, going earlier than Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, and a lot of others who had immensely more productive careers. But that's not his problem, nor is it ours. For his first shot, Jimmer is assigned an uncharacteristically short jumper in the paint, and he hits it. And then, he never takes a shot in a Knicks uniform again. In real life, Jimmer signed a 10-day contract with the team that they chose not to renew, rendering him a perfect 1-for-1 as a New York Knick, which places him in a fraternity that's actually not as exclusive as I might have guessed. He's one of 69 NBA players to shoot a perfect 100% from the field throughout their entire tenure with a franchise. So, if Jimmer is 1-for-1 as a Knick, that means he never misses as a Knick. James Taft Fredette, you are our third foundational cornerstone and the first whose photo does not look like it was taken out of an FBI surveillance van. The outcome of this game pales in comparison to what I consider to be a monumental discovery, but of course, we'll play it out. This evening, we extend membership to a record 4 Knicks to the Circle of Champions: Marshall Plumlee, Emmanuel Mudiay, Noah Vonleh, and John Jenkins. And although we unfortunately have to say goodbye to a number of memorable players, we managed to finally last an entire game without having to add a single member to the terrible photo squad. We're in the modern era now. Player photos are far more abundant and high quality than they used to be. Best yet, we don't even need the overtime period to lock up the win tonight, cruising to a 91-77 victory in regulation and substantially outshooting our real-life counterparts. Game number 5 of this simulation is a victory on all fronts. I feel as though, after some early stumbles, my system is finally functioning as intended. I just hope it's not too late. On November 10th, 1996, carrying a winning record for the very first time, we confidently march into the cathedral of basketball, General Motors Place in Vancouver, to take on the Grizzlies. Although we only need 82 points to win this one, the real Knicks only spotted us 9 made free throws, so we're gonna need some efficient shooting to pull this one out. In the early going, we're not getting it. Through the first quarter and change, we shoot a miserable 6 for 24. Among those making their permanent exit from the team is Julius Randle, our last great scorer. The reality is, we have new heroes now, such as Jericho Sims, who puts on a show in the second quarter. Sims nails a 3, puts in 2 at the rim, steps back, buries another 3, then adds a long 2 and a layup, 14 points. Jericho Sims has just become the most valuable Knick of this entire simulation, with an astonishing 6 buckets. Welcome to the Circle of Champions. Sims remains on the floor while others shoot. Danuel House Jr. not only misses a layup, but makes a pretty stinky face doing it. Blame the rise of the 10-day contract, which meant a single 3-minute appearance in a Knicks jersey for House. It was so brief that searching Danuel House Jr. Knicks didn't return anything, leading me to simply sift through photos of the game I knew for sure he appeared in until I found him in the background somewhere. For the first time in a long time, we have a brand new member of the terrible photo squad. Make that 2 in a row. Finding a photo of Tyler Hall, whose NBA career to date has lasted 1 minute and 56 seconds, proved even more arduous. This was the best I could do. A non-action shot with a fisheye lens that shows the team observing the national anthem prior to the game. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. Hall has 0 career shot attempts. As of 2024, he's still playing in the G League, so who knows, he might return to the Knicks one day and offer us a greater sample. For now, though, he is a perfect 0 for 0. He has never missed a shot. Tyler Hall is our 4th foundational cornerstone. Back to the action. Matt Mooney fails to convert a layup. Back to the terrible photo squad. This was also the best look at Mooney I could find, and he's even further from the fisheye lens than Hall was. To the terrible photo squad with you. Jericho Sims finally misses and leaves as the greatest New York Knick of this entire 6-game span. Early in the third, Ferran Hunt is due to tip one in at the rim, and oh man, another one for the bulletin board. Oh, yeah, there is an action item I wanted to circle back on. Hey, Game 1 guys, did any of you get around to having a kid? Fantastic, thank you, Jalen Brunson Bricks from mid-range. Things are happening, and quickly, as though the simulation believes it's running out of time. More than a little ominous, I have to say. Onward. Svi Mikhailiuk makes 3 buckets to become our 19th member of the Circle of Champions, and Trevor Keels, having played 8 career minutes, becomes yet another terrible photo squad member with this shot of him standing around in the background. Still another in Dylan Windler with an even grainier photo. I did not see this coming. After going an entire game without needing to use a single terrible photo, I've had to resort to 6 so far this game. Thanks to digital photography, photos are taken in much higher resolution and at much greater volume than they used to be, but I guess they're no match for these 10-day contracts that whisk guys off the floor before photographic evidence can be captured. Regardless, I would imagine we've seen the worst of it. This is Dmitros Kapintsev. I'm pretty sure. Although there were photos of him available in the G League and Summer League, the search for a photo of Kapintsev as an actual New York Knick in or at a Knicks game sent me squinting through every single photo from the 2 games he was known to have played in. And this is all I got for you. An out-of-focus constellation of person-like splotches captured from more than 100 feet away. This photo is in its own category. It feels like another omen. Of what? There's no telling. That's probably nothing. Back to the action. Kapintsev sets from beyond the arc, fires with the 2 arms he probably has, and misses. OG Anunoby snaps our cold shooting streak with a jumper, but as the final seconds tick off the 3rd quarter, we still have a 20-point hole to dig ourselves out of. Anunoby misses in the paint. Precious Achiuwa at the rim. Can't get it to go. Malachi Flynn tries to tip it in. No, Jacob Toppin can't put it in. 4th miss from up close by Bogdanovich. Kicks it out to Shake Milton. Another miss. Mamadi Diakite. No, back out to... It's saying we're out of players. We can't... Can't already be out of... Oh, no. Well, JD, if you're out there, I tried. I tried to fulfill your vision as best I could to eliminate all players from this organization who miss baskets. And I did. I have indeed done so. At the cost of 2,216 regular season games and 28 postseasons that can now no longer be played. I'm sure a lot of you are getting your laughs in right now. I don't know what to say except people like you are the reason the Blues exist. Look, hindsight's 20/20. No one could have foreseen this outcome at the outset of this simulation. Mock me all you want. Go ahead. I'll be over here, finding comfort in the words JD put to paper all those years ago. Pay no mind to those nasty critics. They haven't done a thing to fix the Knicks. Hold on, let me give that one more pass and try to make it rhyme. Pay no mind to those nasty critics. They haven't done a thing to fix the Knicks. There we go. In this line, Dolan seems to be directly addressing whoever runs the Knicks. It's a remarkable and unexpected display of empathy. What could a down and dirty Delta Blues man possibly have seen in a millionaire owner that compelled him to identify with him in this way? Maybe he headed up north to play a few gigs in the big city and they ran into each other and sparked a friendship. We can only really guess. Regardless, they're words of encouragement that I, the poor owner of these simulated Knicks, whose plan has failed spectacularly, certainly appreciate. I need a new plan. I have a new plan. The data inclined among you are going to deride the solution you're about to see. You're going to dismiss its methodology as unsound. You're right, it's not sound, it's something greater. It is divine providence. See, according to the official NBA rulebook, rule number 3, section 1A, no team may be reduced to less than 5 players. It is therefore illegal and impossible for me to cut Mamadi Diakite, my last remaining available New York Knick, from the roster upon missing this shot. By this logic, I am adding Diakite as my 5th foundational cornerstone alongside 4 players who never missed a shot and are still, therefore, part of this organization. What incredible fortune that we have exactly 4 players on the bench who never missed a shot, just waiting to join our NBA rules-mandated 5th player to form a full team of players. This will be my starting 5, my only 5. These are the 5 who will carry us through our remaining 2,216 games. Obviously and regrettably, my miss a shot and you're out doctrine is no longer possible since by rule I'm going to have to keep them on the floor no matter how often they miss. How often will they miss? Well, let's find out by calculating their collective field goal percentages in a Knicks uniform. Diakite, of course, is 0 for 1, having missed his only shot to this point. Jimmer is a perfect 1 for 1. The other three are 0 for 0, meaning this group collectively shoots 1 for 2, or perfectly 500. And that would make them the best shooting New York Knicks team in the history of this franchise. Look what I made. Look at the squad I assembled. Amazing. I understand that some of you might have concerns about this sample size, that the results of some 182,000 or so field goal attempts cannot be accurately projected based on 2-shot attempts, but I mean, our hands are tied. These 2 attempts represent the only sample we've got. And hey, just like those early pioneers of country blues, we just have to be thankful for any surviving material we can get. So now that we've established that we have perfect coin flip odds on every shot, we're going to use those coin flip odds to determine the remainder of the shots in this game. The random function in the spreadsheet only comes up heads in 5 of the remaining 13 shots, and we lose by a score of 82 to 74 to fall to 3-3 on the year. The rest of this 96-97 season, as well as the 27 seasons to follow, will be simulated thusly. We only require 4 pieces of information to simulate any given game: how many free throws were made, how many 2-pointers were attempted, how many 3-pointers were attempted, and how many points were scored by the opponent. In the next contest, the Knicks attempted 66 2-pointers, so I will perform 66 trials. The outcome of each will be determined by the ran-between function. I add those together and multiply them by 2 to calculate the points from 2-pointers. Same with the Knicks' 15 3-pointers, only I triple those, obviously. I add those to the made free throws, and if they're greater than the opponent's score, we win. If they end up equal, I'll simply run the trials again until we don't have a tie. I'm also going to make sure to give the Magic 8-Ball plenty of shakes and resimulate the 0s and 1s on a regular basis, just kind of for the sake of doing so. Now, if and when the Knicks make the postseason, I'll simulate playoff games the same way, but naturally things get a little bit trickier. Since the real Knicks postseason footprint will certainly be much different from ours, they often won't offer us actual games to resimulate. So we're going to do this. The Knicks' regular season performance should have a bearing on their postseason scenario, so we'll give them whatever seed their regular season record would have earned them, and give them the spot of whichever real-life team occupied that seed. Our Knicks will play the opponent they played and attempt the exact same shots they did. Of course, these are best of 5 and best of 7 series, so if we are required to simulate more games in the series than were actually played, we'll simply work backwards and grab the values from the previous game to simulate the next one, so on and so forth, until we've completed the series. And if we win a series, but the team whose place we've taken was eliminated in real life, we'll simply jump into the shoes of whoever beat him in the next round. It's time for Bohannon, Smith, Fredette, Hall, and Diakite to lead us to victory. 6 games down, 2,216 games to go, and we will simulate every single shot of every single game. First, the regular seasons. Let's go. Across these 28 seasons, the real-life Knicks produced a winning percentage of .448. Our Knicks, the ones who make a full 50% of the shots they try, finish with a winning percentage of .741. They make the playoffs every single season, winning the top seed 15 times. In 2001, they win 71 games, and in 2013, they nearly tie the NBA record with 72. These guys are incredible, but there is work left to be done. On to the postseasons, let's do it for JD. Knicks fans, Etrick Bohannon, Chris Smith, Jimmer Fredette, Tyler Hall, and Mamadi Diakite have delivered you 21 NBA titles. It started slowly. In 97, we were knocked out in the first round, and in 98, we fell to the Jordan Bulls in 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then we three-peated. On our third championship run, we swept every round of the playoffs. And although we lost the finals in 02 to Shaq, Kobe, and the Lakers, we bounced back to win another in 03. 2004 saw the most dominant playoff run of all time. Not only did Bohannon, Smith, Fredette, Hall, and Dikite sweep their way through the playoffs again, they only lost one game by single digits, often winning by 20, 30, even 40 points. And although they'd never pieced together a postseason quite like that again, this was the second title of what would eventually become an 11-peat. A reign that finally ended in 2014 when LeBron and the Heat took us down. They've won 7 more titles since. This is the greatest dynasty ever assembled throughout the history of major American sports. Better than the Celtics of the 50s and 60s, better than anyone. We might not have made every shot like I wanted to, not even close, but by making even half of them, we have delivered a dynasty of unprecedented measure. Dolan's dream has been made manifest. I would like to extend a special thanks to our Circle of Champions, as well as our Terrible Photo Squad, and an extra special thanks to our foundational cornerstones, the most sensational starting 5 the game of basketball has ever seen. Enjoy your 21 rings. As I began to wrap things up, curiosity got the better of me. Although I'm sure blues heads have turned every stone in search of details about James Dolan and his life and his career, I did a little digging myself. In a profile of Dolan by Dave McKenna, we find an old soul who sounds delighted by the creation and performance of his art. His enthusiastic tone is a bit of a departure from other practitioners of a form that's called the blues for a reason. It's a quality made all the more interesting given his stage presence. It's said that he would keep his hands in his pockets while he was singing. Kind of a strange cat we got here. Another piece from S.L. Price reports that Dolan would often play shows in New York, which I guess is how I became a Knicks fan. It also notes, interestingly, that he has employees. I mean, roadies and bandmates, sure, but employees are an odd thing for a blues man to have. Stranger still, it seems like his employees were expected to attend his concerts, and it's implied here that roll is called and employees who failed to show up might have faced consequences. Something's not adding for me here. I can't imagine Robert Johnson or Muddy Waters or any of those guys performing with their hands in their pockets or belonging to some kind of org chart. What's going on here? Who is this guy? Oh, son of a...